Hello, my name is Maria Bezubova and you're at my channel Fertilizers Jazz. Here we talk about events, trends, technologies in the world of fertilizers and agriculture. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, and let's jazz! Today I'm happy to host a very interesting guest, Samantha Drury, who is head of sales at Waypoint Commodities, a company that provides modern technological end-to-end solution for procurement of fertilizers and commodity chemicals. We are living now through times of technological burst, which touches each and every part of our lives and businesses. And fertilizers industry, frankly, lags behind. Related industries like fuels, for example, or agricultural products, for many, many years use platforms of commodity exchanges to trade their products. But fertilizers don't have such solution yet. So I think emerging of an independent tech-enabled platform for trading and procurement of fertilizers, as Waypoint Commodities tell about themselves, is an important move that brings our industry closer to the future. I am delighted to welcome you, Samantha, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Maria. Nice to be here.
And my first question will definitely sound like a question of a real rookie, but I hear it from many different industry players, so that's why I think it's an important one, and that's why I decided to start from this question. Why do you think that the fertilizers industry needs at all any changes in its old, let's say, good sales approaches?
So I don't necessarily think that the industry needs to change per se. It's just more about getting better as the times move on. So the sales approaches that I used, they're tried and tested, they are successful, but things start to advance. We see it in all other industries, and this is just one of the last ones that that hasn't yet grasped that. So there's principles within in the industry like quality products, trusted relationships, and they are relevant today. And the opportunity comes from changing, being able to access the data flow that's available, enhance operational organizations, and accelerate decision making. Because ultimately, it's such a competitive market. If you're slow in decision making, then you're going to fall behind. And the sales don't just stop at contract signing. The trade needs to be completed from cradle to grave. There's two parts to the trade. There's relationships, and then there's the operational capabilities that back up those relationships. You could have someone who's great at holding that relationship, but if the trade is falling behind because you're just not able to complete, then that's where it's lacking, and that is where the technology can come in, and that's where things can move. So each side, the relationship and the operational side, need to support each other. And the operational aspect brings confidence, and it helps deepen those relationships. It's kind of like an ongoing circle. So yeah, I think that's why it's really important to be able to leverage digital tooling and able to respond to everything, but also to enhance those relationships, keep those sales methods going.
Indeed, fully agree with that. And can you maybe explain in more details what kind of needs, maybe unfulfilled needs of each chain link of this sales process, which actually, as I see, those chains are producers, international traders or local traders, domestic distributors, and finally end users and customers. So what are those needs of those guys that drive demand for these new procurement solutions?
So I guess all of these players that you've mentioned, the producers, international traders, and domestic distributors, and the end customers, they're all businesses at the end of the day. Ultimately, everybody wants to grow their business, grow their market share. And with the current ways of working, everybody in your team, if you were not to go digital, would only have a limited bandwidth. Each member of the team can only do a certain amount. And it's costly and time consuming to grow that team and find the right people and grow the headcount. A platform offers tools that augment those methods. and just expand what's already there and what already exists. The industry is such a global operator. You're juggling language barriers, time zones, public holidays, and to try and get around that, if you have a platform that's one centralized hub, then you can kind of learn to live with them a lot easier. Obviously, we're all living with it now, but if you can enhance that, then it's fantastic. Like here at Waypoint, we streamline the entire transaction from request for quote through to the tracking of freight, documentation. Everything is there on one hub. So if you're training your competent team that's already there, you're able to leverage a purpose-built platform which aligns the current operations and allows you to be more efficient without overloading your current team. And it just allows you to then bring in I don't know, 1, 2 people rather than 5, 10 people to do the expansion that you would like in your team. When it comes to the actual individuals, producers, always looking to expand and have excess capacity. So they'll always have opportunity to sell cargoes. We would provide a free sales and marketing arm. You can access new geographies that potentially you haven't already accessed, but there's no marketing spend there. You can host product on a platform, the marketing spend isn't there, and as long as that relationship with that platform is established and there are clear expectations that you between the supplier and ourselves or the platform, it allows you to utilize that digital without having to have that in-house. International traders, it allows them to respond to market trends so much quicker. They can take positions if that's what they do, or they can use it as a back-to-back tooling. And then also, if there's data available, you can use that data that's generated by the platform. It's an all-encompassing, ecosystem, as we like to call it. Domestic distributors, they can then secure better access if they know that other products are coming in, or if they currently only have one trade lane. What if something goes wrong? You've got the Red Sea issue at the moment, and people need to find that contingency plan. Do they need another product? Is there something that they, freight situation from China at the moment? The freight is crazy. So can you look for another source? If you don't have that access, can you just pop onto a platform and find that access, start developing those relationships and getting the product that you need? Because ultimately the end users, this isn't a luxury good. You have to, it's product that goes into production. It's product that is needed for certain times of the season. So I think it's having that access and those contingency plans is quite important. And then again, end customers, they can access international markets if they haven't been able to do that before. They can source directly from producers with confidence, and then have all the operational side taken care of by the likes of us.
Do you think that this process might take out from this chain someone, as I mentioned, for example, and customers, big ones, of course, we're talking big ones who are able to purchase like big lots and deliver those lots directly from a producer, but it will eliminate their previous counterparts, like maybe international traders, right, or maybe domestic distributors, so they will not be needed anymore. Isn't it a kind of a hurdle for the whole industry?
I don't think so, especially in the fertilizer industry. The demand is constantly growing. It's not a market that will start to reduce. Population grows, fertilizer demand grows. There will always be room for the big players, for the small players, for the mid players. It's just about the access. Some people just don't have that cash flow capability. They don't have the operational capability. They don't need bulk cargo. They don't have the packing facilities at the ports. They just want to buy a couple of containers, or they just want to have the operational choice, I guess. They don't want to buy from the local markets. They want to buy from the international markets. I think there's always room. There's a lot of room for all the players. And I don't think we're trying to kick anyone out, or digital is ever trying to kick anyone out. It's here to make things easier.
Yeah, cool. As far as I know, there were already several attempts in this direction already done to create a certain technology, let's say a solution to enhance procurement. but they didn't succeed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a couple of those. What were, do you think, the main holdbacks? So what and what you need to take into account, and the whole industry need to take into account in order to make it really work?
So I think that a lot of the technology companies that have tried to come to the market, they've maybe had a lack of understanding, or potentially the projects that were being built were far too in-house and too close to people in the industry. And those people in the industry are then only willing or able to build something based on their own experience. Taking that first one as an example, those that don't necessarily have the understanding about how the market operates, they're usually quite heavily tech-based. They don't have the market experience, and they look to build a product that they think will work, and they think, oh, you know, it's fantastic, it looks great. I think it suits the market, and they kind of force it into the market without any consideration for the actual users, and they hope it takes off. And then I don't necessarily think it's possible to apply such force with a launch strategy in that sense. There needs to be a phased approach. You know, this is an age-old industry. It's not necessarily so online. So there has to be a degree of hand-holding. Users have to get comfortable and develop those relationships. You have to take on board feedback and build the platform as you go along, replicate how things are done today, but just provide it in a more efficient way. And then on the opposite side of that, I did also mention anyone who's very close to the industry, larger corporates trying to develop something in-house. They're often building it for themselves, which is fantastic, but it doesn't apply to the entire industry. And obviously the build cost for something like this, it kind of outweighs the functionality. Because you're building it for your own purpose, and then there's a lot of conflict of interest within industry. And does it apply to anyone else? No. Is it worth the money? Probably not. Whereas here in Waypoint, we're looking to take a more independent approach. We're building a functional tool that reflects the actual workings of the industry. So we're keen to learn about the market. Learn about the market, understand what is liked, what's disliked, what are the pain points that currently exist, and then bring in industry expertise into the team so that we build a platform in the most collaborative way, directly with the users, so that we can transition away from away from working offline and have a more seamless solution in place.
Yeah, exactly. I again fully agree here, because I know that you made and are making a lot of deep dives with the industry players, with different players, type of players, and which hurdles do you hear from them in terms of, you know, that the technology will not be smoothly integrated, and what are those hurdles from their point of view?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the size of the industry and the solution that they're looking for. If you've got a pure procurement tool, which just exists for the flow of information, for large companies, they already have legacy systems. They're working on Excel, and to set up something like this, it's slow and costly, and they just don't know how to jump from their 90s infrastructure to something in a more modern, like today's times. And it's just a difficult thing to get over. Management just don't understand that they're going to have to pick something and stick with it. And I think you have the younger generations coming up and proposing these systems, but the older decision makers, they don't necessarily agree or understand enough to put those systems in place. And then smaller companies, a lot of it, it could be paper-based. I know that in this industry, you have to keep, for audit purposes, you've got 6 or 7 years worth of your transactions. A lot of it is printed because the accountants insist on that. Everything is there, and the record keeping is very difficult. So being able to pull that over onto a system as a small company, having to make those decisions and struggle with getting online and choosing which is the right platform, I think that's quite, potentially a hurdle as well. But if it's a transactional platform like Waypoint's, it's a lot easier as it doesn't require deep integrations for the transactions to take place. The entire value chain is just orchestrated in one place. All the information, all the documents, all the data is just stored in one centralized hub. So we're currently primarily aimed at the SME sized businesses. We're not trying to take on the big giants. It's a task that people try and they fail to do, and that's just not what we're looking to do.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. As per the feedback that I had personally from different guys in the industry, many times, especially from the individual customers, like small, exactly those whom you depict, they evaluate our industry as more person to person, very personal touch. All these conferences, personal meetings. The most important thing is to keep this personal relationship and personal touch. Rather than technology driven. So that's perhaps one of those main reasons why our industry still, as you mentioned earlier, still is one of the least technologically developed. So how do you think this approach can be changed? So how those two things can be put together? Because you cannot take it out at all, right?
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. Person to person is so important. And that's why you have to be tech enabled rather than tech driven. So I think there is a difference there. So if we pick apart the elements of a trade, you go from inquiry to quote, negotiation, contract exchange, prepayment, shipment, documentation, balance payment, delivery of goods. The relationship is what starts it, and the relationship is what finishes it, and it holds it together in the middle as well. And there is no denying that, and there's no taking that away. But the operational element and the movement of goods is a really crucial part that happens in the background. So if you can take best practices of how that happens and develop a tool around it, it allows businesses to host their entire operational transactions in one place, in one centralized hub. And it allows management and operational departments to take an overall view of what's happening in their organization. And I think that will be hugely beneficial. And then in terms of getting people to have a positive outlook towards technology, I think it's really important not to forget the relationship. It will never disappear. And I can't stress that enough. The amount of times we have to have these conversations, we are not trying to take away relationships, because some of these transactions are really high value. And regardless if it's one container and it's only $7,000 for that one container versus a bulk vessel, that $7,000 for a small buyer is a lot of money. So you can't take it away. You can't just say because it's one container and it doesn't compare to the big bulk volumes that it's not high value transaction, because it depends on the audience. So I think it's just really important to develop technology in conjunction with that familiar face-to-face transaction that we see today. And that way you maintain that trust that is in the business, and you the adoption will just get there in the end.
So I think many people now will be relieved, so we will still be going to the conferences after the technology will be fully there.
The whole point of it is to allow, I understand things sometimes go wrong, but it allows business as usual to carry on, and it allows those relationship managers or those people in the industry to focus on relationships, to focus on the distress trades. If something happens, that everything else is being handled, so all hands on deck can focus on that one trade that is currently needing all the attention. Because if you've got a small team and you're juggling multiple transactions, you obviously have your business as usual day-to-day procedures in place. But then if something is wrong, they still need to be cared for, and so does that distress trade. So that you can now focus on that as the relationship sort of continues.
Agree. Can you please tell more, let's say, elaborate more about Waypoint Commodities technology itself? So how it works? Just imagine that I haven't heard anything about that. What should I know about Waypoint Commodities?
We don't just provide access to supply. We tender each RFQ to multiple highly vetted suppliers across all different origins to obtain the best price in the network. Yeah, by acting as a principal, we normalize and absorb the operational risks for the buyers. And then with the suppliers, it's just that one hub where they can store all the documents. There's less email communication going back and forth. Everything is there for them. They just know it's available, and on a yearly basis or whenever they have new documents to update, they can upload them to the platform. And that's one thing that we've heard feedback from, is just like, oh, we don't have to send the same documents over and over and over to the same buyers each month every time they have an inquiry. Yeah. I think it's, and that's just the standardization. We then offer post-contract, real-time tracking, active cargoes, storage of all the documents in one place, as I said. And this is pre-contract and contract, and then post-shipping documents as well. And what it's really looking to do is form this community and a network with our buyers and suppliers, and encourage pricing feedback so that we have a deep understanding of the market. Our suppliers know where they're sitting in the market, and that will help us to start to obtain the most competitive prices. Having all that information allows us to have constructive conversations with all of our buyers, with all of our suppliers, and it allows us to identify areas for improvement as well. Yeah.
And how do you guarantee, let's say, the goodwill of all those guys who are in the platform, both from supplier side and from the customer side? So what is this process that mandatory for everyone? How it goes on?
Yep. So the onboarding process, we would look to, as sort of most reliable trading houses would, we would look to onboard them and do our credit safe checks, standard KYCs, have a look through financials, and then also have open discussions with them. See where they are, how do they operate with their buyers. If they're a distributor, what do they sell on to their to their buyers? If they offer credit, are we then at risk with credit? Having to, we're offering them cash against documents, but we know that their cash cycle isn't necessarily as smooth as ours would be. And then also running them through trade credit, running them through credit safe, as I said, which checks all of the KYC and compliance, and just making sure they're credit-worthy businesses. And we do that on both supplier and buyer sides. The benefit is we then pass on those checks to each party, because we know that we're selling with a reliable party. We know what they were buying from a reliable party. We're also looking, we do implement SGS audits, and so ask them to actually go and see the suppliers, do testing, ask for samples, everything to ensure that the product is good, the supplier is real. taking trips ourselves, going out to China, going to the factories, verifying that these are real people, real businesses, real factories. And it also helps with relationships. That's how you build these relationships, going out to see them. And again, with the platform, there is a tracking management system. So everything that happens on the platform is then tracked through there. So there's kind of like a timeline, and that allows us to identify if there are problems in a transaction. We can then identify where where it happened, set SLAs with our suppliers and buyers, and hold each other accountable and find out where things have gone wrong. And that's not to lay blame on anyone. That's just to improve the service. So if we can have quarterly meetings with our buyers and say, like, this could be done better, as long as we have a buyer and supplier management system, but this could be done better if you were to just give the BL instructions 5 days earlier. It would allow us to ensure we have a draft bill prior to shipment, have it basically approved, have the BL issued a lot sooner after shipment, and that allows us more time during the transit to arrange all the documents. So just using that information that's all recorded to get better every single trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a perfect setup, and I think it's definitely the future. That's the way where we all need to go. And and then to finalize this extremely interesting discussion, we can talk a lot more about all the details. So I would just say to all who is listening to us now that just contact Samantha and try it yourself, because definitely it is worth it. So the final question I would like to ask you, it's more about the future. So how much time do you think our industry, which as we discussed is not very technological one yet, how much we will need to really move to this technology era and to really make these technological things work in a proper way? Is it about years, or it's about decades? How much time do you think it will take?
I think it'll be years. I think we'll see it a lot sooner rather than later. I mean, we already see it in fertilizer applications on fields, drone applications, because of carbon credit recordings, people wanting to use drones and liquid fertilizers being applied. There's also that generational shift. There's succession plans in purchasing departments for manufacturers, large manufacturers or blenders or end users. And then there's also family-run businesses where the younger generations are coming up. And this is mum and dad's business. They have studied something else, they have other interests, but they obviously care about the family business and they would like it to succeed, but they also have their own interests too. So having technology to help keep the business moving and allowing them to have some free time to explore their own interests, or just making procurement departments a lot more efficient. I think it's something that we're seeing a lot more of. It's definitely a hot topic, and we're kind of excited to be one of the first players in that industry to be here and to be able to help shape that future.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Samantha. It was a really very, very insightful discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I wish all the best to you and a lot of success to Waypoint Commodities, and hopefully we will see these procurement solutions very soon working all across the industry. So wish that to all of us, let's say, to all our industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments, what do you think about this idea of bringing tax solution to trading and procurement of fertilizers? And how long do you think it will take for the industry to implement it to the vast majority of industry players? I will leave credentials of Waypoint Commodities below this video. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, push the bell in order not to miss any updates, and see you soon.